We're riding high on a smooth stream of supersonic sound. And I'm your captain and DJ, Professor K.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're taking a look at 25 stellar video games that are turning 25 in the year of our Lord and Savior, 2025. Don't you just love the alliteration? Before we begin, we publish new videos all week long, so be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. While many Zelda fans cherish Ocarina of Time to no end, the love for Majora's Mask came in droves this year. So many streamers and YouTubers jumped on to pay their respects to one of the last games to launch on Nintendo 64. It truly is one of the most unique Zelda games in the franchise, with its darker story and how it was designed entirely around a 3-day cycle. Admittedly, some aspects like the fetch quests haven't aged all that well, but still, Majora's Mask will forever go down as one of the best and frankly most underrated Nintendo games ever made. Resident Evil Code Veronica.
I've got to contact Leon and tell him to let my brother know he's being monitored. It's a good thing I have access to an outside connection from here.
Speaking of underrated, Code Veronica is often the most neglected and underappreciated title in the Resident Evil series. Perhaps this is because not many folks played the game when it was initially released as a Dreamcast exclusive. But with the game being widely available on nearly every platform today, any self-respecting Resident Evil fan ought to play it now, and not just because the 25th anniversary was in February. Code Veronica has some of the coolest puzzles and environments the franchise has ever seen. Here's hoping Capcom's got a remake planned for the near future. Diablo II. Some may call it a flash in the pan before Blizzard got all loot happy with the franchise starting with Diablo 3. Others still call it one of the greatest games Blizzard has ever put out. Diablo 2 to this day remains as one of the best dungeon crawler RPGs you could play. Between the diverse character classes, insane powers, and grim world, it was easy to get lost in the sauce and just spend hours mindlessly fighting enemies. Farming felt fun even when we didn't even realize it. If you haven't played this gem for yourself, a remaster called Diablo II Resurrected was released in 2021 and is currently available on just about every platform. Spyro: Year of the Dragon.
Hi, Spyro. I found this gladiator training arena, and it makes a pretty cool skate park.
It doesn't matter if you're playing the original game on the PS1 or on modern hardware through the Reignited Trilogy remake. Year of the Dragon is not just the best Spyro game ever made, it's also one of the greatest 3D platformers the PS1 had ever seen. Prior to creating Ratchet & Clank and the 2018 Marvel SpiderMan game, Insomniac Games got to truly flex their creativity with Year of the Dragon. You had different playable characters that offered new playstyles, on top of fun minigames that broke up the hunt for gems and dragon eggs. Honestly, this game alone should be the reason why you grab Reignited Trilogy.
Ooh, look out, Hunter. It's the scary sorceress.
I've warned you already. This place isn't safe for small dragons and pussycats.
Final Fantasy IX. If Final Fantasy fans aren't gushing over Final Fantasy VII and why Tifa is better than Aerith, Final Fantasy IX fans are enjoying their favorite game in their own humble corner. Indeed, Final Fantasy IX boasts a remarkable story and combat system at the same level as its more famous predecessor, between Vivi's identity crisis and Garnet struggling with her own enigmatic past. It's a heart-wrenching JRPG about reflection and the discovery of one's place in the world. Hard topics that still resonate with so many players today. If you have yet to experience this captivating entry in the long-running franchise, you can get Final Fantasy IX on just about every platform on the market, and more often than not, at a pretty good price too. American McGee's Alice.
Perhaps. Can you get me inside the Fortress of Doors?
Oh no, I wouldn't dare. Since the upheaval, we've all become gutless half-wits.
While American McGee has worked on a handful of games in his post-Doom career, Alice remains his most iconic warts and all. Despite the controls and mechanics feeling outdated by today's standards, the main draw of the game was the macabre take on Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. With the Cheshire Cat now a mangy feline, and Wonderland now a corrupted nightmare of gore and sorrow, American McGee's Alice was a wonderful dark fantasy that was unlike any other game on the market at the time. The game's 25th anniversary isn't until December 5th, so here's hoping EA recognizes the anniversary and ports the game to modern hardware. That and Alice Madness returns. Pokemon Crystal. 2025 marks a major milestone for Pokemon, as Pokemon Crystal turns 25 on December 14th. Even though most fans gravitate towards Gold and Silver, Crystal was a mishmash of both games while introducing a handful of new features that would become staples of the franchise. The choice in making your character a boy or a girl, the battle tower, and the animated sprites that played during battle helped bring the world of Pokemon to life despite being on Game Boy Color. That said, it might behoove Nintendo to get this classic on Switch Online before the end of the year. Mario Tennis. The year 2000 was quite a year for the Nintendo 64, more significant than most other consoles during their swan song years. Mario Tennis was among the N64's final games, and it was a hit or miss depending on who you ask. One side will tell you it was fun with friends, and how it was cool seeing such a diverse roster of Mario's friends and foes, including the new Golden Boy, Waluigi. The other side might rant about difficulty ramping up just a little too quickly in the tournament mode. Either way, it did offer some incredibly fun multiplayer, especially if you play on the Bowser stage where your shots spawned items to hinder your opponents. Persona 2: Eternal Punishment. For the longest time, the Persona franchise has been heavily represented by its third, fourth, and fifth mainline games, and understandably so. But what about the older games, specifically Persona 2? Well, June 29th, 2025 marks the 25th anniversary of Eternal Punishment, the sequel to Persona 2 Innocent Sin. Yes, we have a Final Fantasy X situation on our hands, a sequel to a sequel of a game. Though some aspects of Eternal Punishment don't match up with the newer games, there is a part of us that hopes Atlus will capitalize on the occasion and port not just Eternal Punishment, but Innocent Sin as well, to form the complete Persona 2 experience. But we're not holding our breaths. They're likely getting remade. Mega Man Legends 2.
What is that, Mega Man?
For some bizarre reason, just about every Mega Man game under the sun has been preserved on modern hardware except for the Mega Man Legends games. Well, Mega Man Legends 2 turned 25 in April, and there has still been no recognition of this series from Capcom. It's a real shame, because these were really cool third-person shooters back in the day, and it was a format that worked pretty well for the Mega Man formula, and yet they remain stranded on PS1. Come on, Capcom. Where's our Mega Man Legends collection, huh?
Don't waste your time, geeks. You could become infected by her aberrant logic.
My, aren't we testy? What have I done?
Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards. While every Kirby game has come with its own neat gimmicks, Kirby 64 had one of the coolest ideas in the franchise. In addition to the usual copy abilities that you would expect to appear, Kirby 64 allows you to throw your copy ability at other enemies to combine their powers. Fire and Rock could turn Kirby into a volcano, while Sword and Plasma allowed Kirby to channel his inner Darth Maul. You could discover all kinds of different powers through this mechanic, and sometimes it could wind up breaking the game a bit. Those new to Kirby 64 can still play the game via Switch Online's expansion pack service. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Funny how 2025 is the year for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 when it's the 25th anniversary of Pro Skater 2. But we did get the 1+2 remake in 2020, so the game is more or less preserved. Compared to the original game though, Pro Skater 2 featured some of the coolest levels in the franchise between the Hangar, School 2, Venice Beach, and Chopper Drop. But perhaps the coolest feature in the game was how you could skate around as SpiderMan. And speaking of, the Webheads got an anniversary in 2025 as well. SpiderMan.
Hey, Black Cat, what's going on?
I know there's been some trouble, but the bank's being robbed, and they've got hostages.
Yes, the classic PS1 Spider-Man game turns 25 on August 30th, 2025. Folks have so much love for this game, more than almost any other Spider-Man game ever made. We are among those fans, as this was one of the first tried and true iterations of Spidey with its wall-crawling traversal and unique spider abilities. Admittedly, the controls and difficulty have not aged gracefully. Even so, we would love to go through this game again should it ever resurface on modern hardware. The thing is that, are Sony, Marvel, and Activision willing to work out a deal, especially now that Microsoft owns Activision? Probably not, but stranger things have happened.
Rest easy, Brock. Venom is here. And if it's the last thing we ever do, Jameson and the insect are gonna pay.
Vagrant Story. Square Enix has a lot of forgotten RPGs under its belt, and among them is Vagrant Story. This JRPG was one of the last to release on the original PlayStation console, and to this day, it is known to be one of the most strangely innovative games in the genre. It kind of leaves you to figure things out on your own, and gives you all of the tools you possibly need. There are no shops, no ways to interact with NPCs, just you, your weapons, some puzzles, and whatever enemies dare challenge you. Unfortunately, Square Enix hasn't paid Vagrant Story much mind since releasing a port of it on PlayStation Vita. Perhaps we'll see it pop up on PS4 and PS5 later in 2025? Dark Cloud. Many months after the release of Vagrant Story came one of the first big releases for the PlayStation 2. Dark Cloud, developed by Level 5, featured a beautiful blend of classic dungeon crawling, hack-and-slash combat, and procedurally generated level design. Some may not have dug the survival mechanics being thrown in, but overall, the combat, the story, and the world caught thousands of players' attention. If only it had caught on quicker at launch. Sales numbers were not great, and though we did get a sequel, Dark Cloud is now just a time capsule. But it's a rather wondrous time capsule in the best of ways. BanjoKazooie. While many reminisce about BanjoKazooie more often, BanjoKazooie deserves some attention this year as it turns 25. In addition to featuring new worlds to explore and new bosses to face, BanjoKazooie incorporated new mechanics between new transformations from Humbawamba and the inclusion of Mumbo Jumbo as a playable character. Adding to the value of this sequel was the multiplayer, which ranged from first-person shooter minigames to trivia to soccer and so much more. So please, if you have a Nintendo 64 or a Switch Online membership, maybe it's time to dust off the N64 or Switch and give BanjoKazooie some love this year. Midnight Club, Street Racing. Rockstar Games is pretty much known for only two IPs these days, Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead. Older fans may fawn over the old days of LA Noire or Bully, but the much older fans might be celebrating Midnight Club's anniversary this year. Developed by Angel Studios before they were rebranded as Rockstar San Diego, Midnight Club was a surprisingly thrilling racing game that could almost rival Sony in its Gran Turismo franchise. The controls were spot on for the time, and the visual fidelity showed the potential power of the PlayStation 2. Alas, Rockstar has sort of allowed GTA to absorb Midnight Club with with its inclusion of street racing. So, the conglomerate has very, very little reason to resurrect this IP, regardless of anniversaries and fan demand. Skies of Arcadia. If there were 2 Dreamcast games we could bring to modern hardware, one of them would absolutely be Skies of Arcadia, in what was already a stellar year for the genre. Sadly, the failure of the Dreamcast led to abysmal sales, and by the time it was ported to GameCube, most people were busy playing Sonic or the litany of first-party Nintendo exclusives. And Sega, well, who's going to be the first to explain to these people what a Sky of Arcadia is? Because it seems we're never going to get this gem on modern hardware. Ever. Does Sega even know what Skies of Arcadia is anymore? Mario Party 3. The final Mario Party on Nintendo 64, Mario Party 3 was perhaps the most beloved game in the series, with Mario Party 2 coming in at a close second. But this one was the most innovative at the time. For starters, the roster finally expanded beyond the 6 characters we had previously, with Waluigi and Daisy as the newcomers. Then you had an entire single-player campaign within the story mode section, as well as a much shorter 2-player party mode known as Duel Mode. Couple all of that with the accoutrements the previous games delivered, and Mario Party 3 may as well have been the ultimate Mario Party. Well, at least until we got into the GameCube era. Time Splitters. Free from the shackles of 007 licensing, several Rare staff left the UK-based studio to form their own company. What better way to storm onto the market than with a spiritual successor to one of your biggest games? Although, Time Splitters proved that it could be more than just another GoldenEye clone. The theme of time travel opened the gates for imaginative level design, and the inclusion of co-op in the campaign allowed for all kinds of chaos between the players and enemies. And do we even need to mention the inclusion of a map editor? A feature that was incredibly rare for games to ever include in the year 2000? That said, 2025 is a pretty good time to pay tribute to Time Splitters and replay the series. Or play them for the first time if you haven't before.
Any passengers still wishing to go to Fun Arts Star, please make your way to gate 79.
The Sims. "25 years ago, EA published a game that would quickly become a key pillar in their business. On paper, The Sims sounds about as interesting as watching paint dry. You want the player to design homes and watch virtual characters live their own lives? Well, developer Maxis clearly knew what they were doing, and they delivered a game that was interesting, goofy, and somewhat comforting in its low-stakes atmosphere. But of course, most probably remember this game mostly for all the Sims that drowned because they couldn't find a ladder in their pool. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes. Hard to believe that 2000 was such a light year for fighting games. Sure, there was Guilty Gear X, but the biggest game that came out in the year 2000 was Marvel vs. Capcom 2. At the time, reception towards the game wasn't great, with critics citing the lounge jazz music and overwhelming gameplay as their biggest problems. In the arcades and some folks' homes, it was a different story, and it continues to be today. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 boasts so much experimentation and malleability that you can discover new playstyles with every permutation of characters. Will they always be effective? Not really, but when things get nutty in MVC 2, they get nutty. Deus Ex.
I take it he was agreeable?
He didn't really have a choice.
Has he been infected?
Oh yes, most certainly. When I mentioned that we could put him on the priority list for the ambrosia vaccine, he was so willing it was almost pathetic.
Deus Ex is one classic IP that has fallen by the wayside sadly. Following the disastrous launch of Daikatana, which also turns 25 in 2025, so hope you wished John Romero a happy Daikatana day, developer Ion Storm would soon launch Deus Ex, the only commercial success that the studio would ever see before its closure in 2005. Directed by Warren Spector, who is known for Thief, Ultima 4, and System Shock, Deus Ex threw players into a cyberpunk world marred by government conspiracies leading to tactical espionage, mistrust, and paranoia. Thematically unique, thought-provoking, and flexible in interactivity, Deus Ex truly is one of the greatest games ever made, and one that every fan of gaming needs to play. You have no excuse now. It's $7 on Steam.
Paul, I thought you were in Hong Kong. Welcome to the Coalition, JC. I might as well start using your code name. Think I'd miss my brother's first day? Didn't think you'd have a choice. What's going on?
Jet Set Radio.
This is your very own guerrilla broadcaster, Jet Set Radio! Use this city as your canvas and paint us some vibes from the street.
Yes, Jet Set Radio is the other Dreamcast game that we would love to bring back, and for good reason. It wasn't because of a super deep story, or complex mechanics, or some technical achievement. It was the vibes, man. Listening to a funky hip-hop soundtrack while wreaking havoc in the city, pulling off tricks, felt so awesome that we easily lost hours playing Jet Set Radio, sometimes entire afternoons. It's part of the reason why the upcoming revival is such a big deal to us, and we're honestly hoping Sega will port the original game in some way before launching the new iteration. Perfect Dark. While David Doak and his team were busy with Time Splitters, Rare attempted their own spiritual successor to GoldenEye 007 with this gem. Perfect Dark not only replicated the skeleton of the James Bond game, it added onto it with more gadgets and different objectives that made gameplay much more diverse and immersive than ever before. It also helped that the level design felt more reasonable and logical than some of the sets we saw in GoldenEye. Will the new Perfect Dark make it in time for the franchise's 25th anniversary? Might be wishful thinking, but that reboot could be popping up again in the near future, along with maybe some new ports. But tell us, which of these games are you planning to celebrate with? Let us know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to MojoPlays for more great videos every day.